The blizzard hit the Wyoming territory like God's own fury, turning the world into a howling white nightmare. 22-year-old Ethan Cole pressed his gelding forward through drifts that reached the horse's chest, his fingers numb inside his gloves, despite the wool lining. He'd been checking fence lines when the storm rolled over the mountains faster than any weather he'd seen in his 5 years working the Triple Bar Ranch. Now he couldn't see 10 feet ahead, and the temperature was dropping so fast he could feel ice forming in his beard. The old line shack appeared through the snow like a miracle, a dark shape that meant shelter, warmth, survival. Ethan half fell from his horse and stumbled to the door, leading the gelding around to the lean-to on the protected side. His hands shook as he stripped the saddle and rubbed the animal down with handfuls of hay from the small store inside the shelter. The horse would be cold, but he'd survive. Before we continue with Ethan's fight for survival, I want to ask you something important. If you're enjoying this story, please take a moment to subscribe to the From Wild West channel and give this video a like. Your support truly matters. It helps us bring you more quality content and stories from the frontier. I'd also love to know, where are you listening from right now? Drop a comment and let me know. Ethan pushed into the shack itself, grateful when the door gave way. The single room was dark and freezing, but the stone fireplace in the corner held dry wood someone had stacked, probably himself, months ago. He worked with numb fingers to build a fire, and when the kindling finally caught, he nearly wept with relief. Only then did he notice he wasn't alone. In the corner, farthest from the door, wrapped in a buffalo robe that blended with the shadows, a woman sat perfectly still. Ethan's hand went to his revolver, but stopped when he saw her face in the growing firelight. She was Lakota, maybe 20 years old, with features that would have been beautiful if not twisted with pain. Her left shoulder was bound with cloth, dark with blood, and her breathing came shallow and quick. "Jesus," Ethan breathed, holstering his gun and moving toward her. "You're hurt." She flinched back, her right hand emerging from the robe with a knife that caught the firelight. Her eyes, dark as creek stones and just as hard, tracked his every movement. When she spoke, her English was accented but clear. "Stay back, white man." Ethan stopped, raising his hands. "I'm not gonna hurt you, but that shoulder needs tending, and we're both gonna die if we don't keep warm." He shrugged off his snow-caked coat and hung it near the fire. "My name's Ethan Cole. I work the Triple Bar Ranch, about 6 miles south." The woman's jaw clenched, but she didn't lower the knife. Blood had started seeping through her makeshift bandage again. Ethan could see the tremor in her knife hand. Blood loss, cold, maybe both. "There's coffee in my saddlebag," he said quietly, moving slowly toward the door. "And some jerky. Let me get my supplies, and I'll tend that wound. Then we'll stay on opposite sides of this room until the storm passes. Fair?" She watched him with those unreadable eyes, then gave a single, sharp nod. The knife didn't move. Ethan retrieved his saddlebags from the lean-to, the cold wind nearly knocking him off his feet in the few seconds he was exposed. When he returned, the woman had slumped slightly against the wall, her face drawn with pain. He set up his battered coffee pot over the fire and began pulling out supplies. Clean cloth, a bottle of whiskey for cleaning wounds, her sewing kit. "I'm gonna need to see that shoulder," he said, meeting her eyes. "I know you got no reason to trust me, but infection will kill you faster than this storm, and I've sewn up plenty of men and cattle in my time. I'll be gentle as I can. For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then, slowly, she lowered the knife and pulled the buffalo robe aside. Underneath, she wore a deerskin dress, now torn and bloody at the shoulder. A bullet had torn through the meat of her upper arm, entry and exit wounds both visible. "Who shot you?" Ethan asked, dampening cloth with water from his canteen. "Soldiers," she said, her voice tight. 3 days ago, my father's village traded peacefully at Fort Laramie. We were returning home when they attacked. Said we'd stolen horses." She met his eyes with fierce pride. "We stole nothing. The horses were ours." Ethan nodded, his jaw tight. He'd heard stories about the new commander at Laramie, a man who saw hostiles in every native face. "This is gonna hurt," he warned, then pressed the whiskey-soaked cloth to her wounds. She hissed between her teeth, but didn't cry out. Ethan worked as quickly as he could, cleaning both sides of the wound. The bullet had missed bone and major vessels. She'd been lucky. "Need stitches," he said. "I can do it, but—" "Do it," she ground out. He threaded the needle, his hands steadier now that they'd warmed. "Might help to know your name. Something to call you besides ma'am." "Joaquin Yan Wing," she said, "in your tongue, Thunder Woman. My father is Chief Tatanka Inyanke, running buffalo." Ethan's hands stilled for just a moment. He'd heard of running buffalo, a chief known for trying to keep peace with the settlers while protecting his people. A man caught between two worlds that seemed determined to destroy each other. "Your father must be worried sick," Ethan said quietly, making the first stitch. Thunder Woman's body went rigid, but she made no sound. "How'd you end up this far south?" "I ran when the shooting started. Got separated." Her voice was strained. "My horse fell 2 days ago. I've been walking. Found this place yesterday." Ethan worked in silence, making small, careful stitches. The firelight played across Thunder Woman's face, and he found himself noticing details he shouldn't. The elegant curve of her cheekbone, the determined set of her jaw, the way her thick black braids fell over her uninjured shoulder. She was beautiful and brave and absolutely off-limits. Not just because she was the daughter of a Lakota chief, but because she was hurt, scared, and trapped here with him. When he tied off the last stitch, Thunder Woman let out a shaky breath. "You have steady hands, Ethan Cole." "Had practice." He wrapped clean cloth around her shoulder, securing it carefully. "My ma died when I was 15. Dad got drunk and fell off his horse 2 years later. Been on my own since, mostly. You learn to patch yourself up when there's nobody else." Thunder Woman studied him with those dark, assessing eyes. "You are alone." It wasn't a question. Ethan poured coffee into 2 tin cups and offered her one. "Mostly. Got the other ranch hands, but we're not exactly friends. I work, I sleep, I work some more. Not much else to life out here." "That is sad," Thunder Woman said simply, accepting the coffee. She wrapped both hands around the cup, and Ethan noticed the tremor was easing. "Among my people, no one is alone. We are part of something larger." "Must be nice," Ethan said, and meant it. The storm howled outside, rattling the shack's walls. Ethan added more wood to the fire and checked his pocket watch. Barely noon, but dark as twilight. They'd be here at least until morning, maybe longer depending on how much snow fell. "You should eat," he said, pulling out jerky and some hardtack. "Keep your strength up." Thunder Woman accepted the food with a nod that might have been thanks. They ate in silence, the only sounds, the crackling fire and screaming wind. Ethan found himself sneaking glances at her when he thought she wasn't looking. The proud line of her neck, the way firelight caught in her hair, the fierce intelligence in her eyes, even dulled with pain and exhaustion. "You stare," Thunder Woman said suddenly, and Ethan felt heat flood his face. "Sorry, I've never really talked to any of the Lakota before. Seen camps at a distance, but never—" He trailed off, feeling foolish. "Never spoke to one of the savages?" There was an edge to her voice. "I don't think that," Ethan said quickly. "I never did. My ma used to tell me about the native folks who helped her family when they first came west. She said they were kind, generous. She said white folks had a lot to learn from them." Ooh. He stared into his coffee. Most people didn't want to hear that, so she stopped saying it. But she never stopped believing it. Thunder Woman's expression softened slightly. "Your mother was wise." "She was," Ethan agreed. "I wish I'd listened better when she was alive." Outside, the wind picked up even more, and a shower of snow blew down the chimney, hissing in the fire. Thunder Woman shivered, despite the buffalo robe, and Ethan saw goosebumps on her exposed skin. "You're still cold," he observed. "That robe isn't enough in this weather." "I will be fine." "You'll freeze," Ethan corrected. "Pride won't keep you warm." He pulled out his bedroll and one of his extra blankets. "Here, no arguments. You need this more than I do." Thunder Woman looked at the offered blanket, then at him. Something shifted in her expression, a crack in her armor of distrust. "Why do you help me? I am nothing to you. Less than nothing to most white men." Ethan met her eyes steadily. "Because you're hurt and scared and stuck in a blizzard. Because it's the right thing to do. Because—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Because I see a woman worth saving. That's all the reason I need." For a long moment, Thunder Woman just stared at him. Then slowly, she reached out and took the blanket, wrapping it around herself over the buffalo robe. "Thank you, Ethan Cole." Just Ethan's fine. Night fell, though it was hard to tell the difference in the storm's perpetual twilight. The temperature kept dropping, and despite the fire, Ethan could see his breath in the air. Thunder Woman had curled up in her corner, but even with the extra blanket, she shivered. Her injured shoulder had to be making it worse. Bodies used extra energy healing, and she hadn't eaten a proper meal in days. Ethan added the last of the wood to the fire, calculating how long it would last. Maybe until dawn, if they were lucky. After that, they'd have to break up furniture or freeze. He settled against the wall opposite Thunder Woman, trying to get comfortable. "Tell me about your family," Thunder Woman said suddenly, her voice cutting through the storm's howl. Ethan looked up, surprised. "Why?" "Because the night is long, and I am cold, and stories pass the time." She shifted, wincing. "In my village, we share stories around the fire. It binds us together." So Ethan talked. He told her about his mother's laugh, bright as a bell on Christmas morning, about his father's rare moments of tenderness between the drinking bouts, about learning to break horses and rope cattle, about his first winter alone when he'd nearly starved, too proud to ask for help. Thunder Woman listened without interruption, her eyes reflecting firelight. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she began to speak, her voice taking on a rhythmic quality that made Ethan think of poetry or prayer. She told him about growing up in her father's village, learning to tan hides and bead moccasins from her mother, about the first time she'd been allowed to ride in a buffalo hunt, the thunder of hooves and the smell of dust and blood, about her younger brother, still learning to be a warrior, who made her laugh with his imitations of the serious elders. "You miss them," Ethan said when she paused. "Every moment." Thunder Woman's hand went to a beaded bracelet on her wrist. "My brother made this for me. He said it would keep me safe on my journey." Her laugh was bitter. "He was wrong." "He wasn't wrong," Ethan said. "You're alive. You made it here. That bracelet did its job." Thunder Woman looked at him, something unreadable in her expression. "You have a kind heart, Ethan. It is rare." The night deepened. The storm showed no signs of letting up. If anything, the wind blew harder, finding every crack in the shack's walls. Despite the fire, the cold crept in, insidious and relentless. Ethan pulled his coat tighter around himself, but his teeth still chattered. "This is foolish," Thunder Woman said suddenly. She'd been watching him for the last few minutes. "We waste heat being separate. Among my people, in winter, we sleep close for warmth. It is practical, not shameful." Ethan's face heated despite the cold. "I don't want you to think I'm trying to—" "I know what you're trying to do," Thunder Woman interrupted. "You are trying to be honorable. But honor means nothing if we freeze to death." She shifted, making room under her buffalo robe and blankets. "Come, we share warmth, nothing more." Ethan hesitated, every instinct screaming that this was improper, dangerous, would lead to something he couldn't take back. But Thunder Woman was right. They were wasting precious heat, and the temperature kept dropping. Slowly, he gathered his bedroll and moved to her side of the room. "I'll stay on top of the blankets," he said, settling beside her, but keeping a careful distance. "You will freeze," Thunder Woman said flatly. She lifted the edge of the buffalo robe. Under, now, the heat that hit him when he slid under the furs was immediate and blessed. Thunder Woman's body warmth had created a pocket of comfort, and Ethan had to stop himself from pressing closer. He lay rigid beside her, acutely aware of every point where their bodies almost touched. "Breathe," Thunder Woman said, and there was amusement in her voice. "I will not bite." Despite himself, Ethan laughed. The tension broke, and he let himself relax slightly. They lay side by side, listening to the storm, neither speaking. Gradually, Ethan's shivering stopped. His eyelids grew heavy. "Thank you," he murmured, "for trusting me." "Thank you," Thunder Woman replied softly, "for being trustworthy." Ethan woke to find Thunder Woman pressed against his side, her head on his shoulder and her injured arm carefully draped across his chest. At some point during the night, they'd unconsciously sought each other's warmth, fitting together like puzzle pieces. The fire had died to embers, and beyond the shack's walls, the storm still raged. He should move, should put distance between them. Instead, he found himself studying her face in the dim light, the sweep of her eyelashes, the fullness of her lips, the small scar on her chin that he wanted to know the story behind. She looked younger in sleep, vulnerable in a way she'd never allow when awake. Thunder Woman's eyes opened, meeting his immediately. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then she lifted her head, a flush spreading across her cheeks. "I apologize," she said, starting to pull away. "I did not mean—" "Don't," Ethan said quietly, his arm tightening around her waist before he could think better of it. "Don't apologize. You were cold. I was cold. We kept each other warm. That's all." But it wasn't all, and they both knew it. Something had shifted in the night, some barrier dissolving in the darkness and cold and shared vulnerability. Thunder Woman didn't pull away, and Ethan didn't let go. The storm is still bad, Thunder Woman observed, her voice slightly unsteady. Yeah, Ethan could barely focus on the weather with her this close. Probably be here another day at least. Another day. Thunder Woman's hand rested on his chest, over his heart. Could she feel how hard it was pounding? Ethan, I should tell you something. When I thought I would die in the snow, before I found this place, I made peace with it. I was not afraid. But now, she looked up at him. Now I find I very much want to live. You will live, Ethan said fiercely. I'll make damn sure of it. Why? Thunder Woman asked. Why do you care so much about a stranger? About someone your people call enemy? Because you're not my enemy, Ethan said. Because in one night, you've made me feel less alone than I have in 7 years. Because when I look at you, I see... He stopped, afraid to finish. What do you see? Thunder Woman's voice was barely a whisper. I see someone strong and brave and beautiful, Ethan said. I see someone who deserves better than being shot and left to die in a blizzard. I see... He swallowed hard. I see someone I could care about. A lot, if I let myself. Thunder Woman was silent for a long moment, her fingers curling into his shirt. Among my people, she said slowly, we believe that the spirits sometimes bring two souls together for a reason, that some meetings are not accident, but destiny. Do you believe that? Ethan asked. I am beginning to. Thunder Woman lifted her head, her face inches from his. Last night when you stitched my wound, your hands were gentle, kind. No man has touched me with such care. Among my people, I am Running Buffalo's daughter first, Thunder Woman second. I am a symbol, a prize, a political piece. But you, she touched his face. You looked at me and saw a person, just a person who needed help. You're not property, Ethan said roughly. You're a woman with your own thoughts and feelings and dreams. Anyone who doesn't see that is a fool. Thunder Woman smiled, and it transformed her face. See, kind heart. She settled back against his shoulder. Tell me, Ethan Cole, what dreams do you have? What do you want from life? No one had ever asked him that. Ethan had to think about it, turning the question over in his mind. I want land of my own someday, he said finally. Not a big ranch, just enough for some cattle and horses. A place where I belong, where nobody can take it from me. A home, I guess. And, he hesitated, someone to share it with. Not just hired hands, but a real partner. Someone who wants to build something together. That is a good dream, Thunder Woman said. Simple, but good. What about you? Ethan asked. What do you want? Thunder Woman was quiet for so long, he thought she might not answer. I want peace, she said finally. Peace for my people, so we can live without fear of soldiers or settlers taking what little we have left. I want my brother to grow old, to have children, to not die young in some meaningless fight. Her voice dropped. And I want to be seen as I am, not as men wish me to be. My father is a good man, but he sees a marriage alliance. When he looks at me, other chiefs see a path to power through my father. Even the men of my village see Running Buffalo's daughter, not Thunder Woman herself. I see you, Ethan said. Just you. Thunder Woman turned in his arms, her good hand coming up to cup his cheek. Her eyes searched his face, looking for something. Whatever she found must have satisfied her, because she smiled again, softer this time, almost shy. I believe you do, she said. The moment stretched between them, heavy with possibility. Ethan's hand came up to cover hers against his face. Her skin was warm, smooth, and his thumb traced small circles on her wrist. Thunder Woman's breath caught. "Ethan," she whispered. "Thunder Woman," he replied, then paused. Is there a shorter name I can call you? Something more personal?" Her smile widened. "My mother calls me Wing Yang. It means woman, but from her lips it is tender, special." "Wing Yang," Ethan repeated, the unfamiliar syllables clumsy on his tongue. "Did I say it right?" "Close enough." She laughed, the sound light and genuine. "You may call me this if you wish. And you can call me Ethan. Just Ethan. Not White Man or Ethan Cole. Just Ethan." "Ethan," she said, and the way she said his name, soft and warm and intimate, sent a shiver through him that had nothing to do with cold. They stayed like that, wrapped in furs and each other's arms, as the day wore on. The storm continued its assault on the shack. But inside their small sanctuary, warmth grew. They talked about everything and nothing, childhoods and fears, favorite seasons and foods, the small details that made up a life. Ethan told her about a meadow he'd found once, full of wildflowers and perfectly peaceful. Thunder Woman described ceremonies and dances, the beauty of her village in summer. "I wish I could see it," Ethan said. "Your village, your world." Thunder Woman's expression grew sad. "It would not be safe for you. My people are not hostile, but they are afraid, angry. Too many broken promises, too many attacks like the one that wounded me. A white man in our village, even one with a kind heart." She shook her head. "My father might protect you for my sake. Others would not be so merciful." "And if you came to the ranch?" Ethan asked, though he already knew the answer. "The same," Thunder Woman said. "Your people would see only a savage, an enemy, someone to fear or use or kill." She traced patterns on his chest, her touch absent-minded and soothing. "We are caught between worlds, you and I, neither fully belonging to our own, unable to cross to the other." "Then we make our own world," Ethan said impulsively. "Just us, for as long as this storm lasts. No soldiers or settlers or chiefs or prejudice. Just two people, keeping each other warm and alive." Thunder Woman looked up at him, her eyes bright. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I would like that very much." By afternoon, the storm had intensified impossibly further. Snow piled against the door, and wind tore at the roof. Thunder Woman's shoulder was hurting. Ethan could tell from the tightness around her eyes. So he carefully changed her bandage and checked the stitches. No infection. Thank God. The wound was clean and already starting to heal. "You would make a good healer," Thunder Woman said as he worked. "Gentle hands." "Just don't like seeing things suffer," Ethan replied. "Animal or person, doesn't matter. If I can help, I should." Thunder Woman caught his hand when he finished, bringing it to her lips and pressing a soft "To deserve that look in your eyes. You already deserve it," Thunder Woman whispered. They were so close now, barely a breath between them. Ethan could see gold flecks in her dark eyes, could count her eyelashes, could feel her pulse fluttering in her throat. He wanted to kiss her with an intensity that shook him, but he held back. She was injured, vulnerable, trapped here with him. Taking advantage of that would make him the worst kind of man. "Wing Yang," he said roughly. We shouldn't." "Should what?" she asked, her lips curving. "Should not want each other? Should pretend this thing between us does not exist?" Her hand slid to his neck, fingers tangling in his hair. "I am not helpless, Ethan. I am not confused. I know what I want." "What do you want?" The question came out hoarse. Thunder Woman's smile was equal parts shy and bold. "I want to kiss you. I want to feel alive, not just surviving. I want. She took his hand and placed it over her heart. I want you to know that this beats faster when you are near. That I have not felt this way before. That you scare me and thrill me and make me hope for impossible things. What kind of impossible things? Ethan asked, though his own heart was thundering. Things like two worlds coming together. Like finding someone who sees the real me and does not turn away. Like, she met his eyes. Like being someone's first choice, not their duty or their prize. You'd be my first choice, Ethan said fiercely. Every time. Over everything. Thunder Woman's breath caught, and then she was closing the distance between them, her lips meeting his in a kiss that was both tender and desperate. Ethan gathered her closer, careful of her shoulder, pouring everything he couldn't say into the kiss, loneliness and longing, and the dizzy realization that something profound had just shifted in his life. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Thunder Woman smiled against his lips. That was my first kiss, she admitted. Ethan pulled back, stunned. Your first? But I thought, you thought because I am Chief's daughter, I would have many suitors? Thunder Woman laughed softly. I did, but none I wanted to kiss. None I trusted with such intimacy. She touched his face. Only you. I don't deserve that, Ethan said. I'm nobody. A ranch hand with no prospects and no future. You are not nobody, Thunder Woman said firmly. You are Ethan Cole, who stitched my wounds and shared his warmth and made me feel human again. You are the man who sees me, truly sees me, and does not look away. She kissed him again, soft and sweet. You are enough. More than enough. They spent the rest of the day wrapped in each other, trading kisses and whispered confessions. Ethan learned the taste of her laughter, the silk of her hair, the way she sighed when he traced the curve of her jaw. Thunder Woman mapped the planes of his face with gentle fingers, memorizing him like he might disappear. As darkness fell again and the storm showed no signs of stopping, they lay together under the firs, Thunder Woman's head on Ethan's chest and his arms around her. What happens when the storm ends? Thunder Woman asked quietly. Ethan had been dreading that question. I don't know, he admitted. You need to get back to your family. They'll be worried sick. But he tightened his hold. I don't want to lose this, lose you. I do not want to lose you either, Thunder Woman said. She was quiet for a moment. Then, there is a place, a canyon, 3 hours' ride northeast of my father's winter camp. It has a spring that never freezes, and the walls protect from wind. We call it Wingte Wakong, the sacred meeting place. Long ago, before the white men came, different tribes would meet there in peace to trade and talk. Why are you telling me this? Ethan asked, though his heart was already beating faster. Because when the moon is full, I sometimes go there to think, to be alone, she turned her face up to his, to be myself, not Running Buffalo's daughter. Her fingers traced patterns on his chest. The next full moon is in 3 weeks. I will be there at sunset, by the spring. If someone were to come find me. I'll be there, Ethan said immediately. I'll find a way, I promise. Thunder Woman smiled. Do not promise what you cannot keep, Ethan Cole. I never do, he replied, and kissed her to seal the vow. The night deepened, and with it came a profound shift in the storm. The wind, which had been screaming for 2 days straight, suddenly died. Snow continued to fall, but gentle now, almost peaceful. In the sudden quiet, Ethan could hear Thunder Woman's breathing, the crackle of the fire, his own heartbeat. "The storm is breaking," Thunder Woman said, sadness in her voice. "By morning, we will be able to leave." "I know." Ethan held her tighter, as if he could stop time through will alone. Thunder Woman shifted, pushing up on her good arm to look down at him. Her hair fell around them like a curtain, creating a private world. In the firelight, she was breathtakingly beautiful. But more than that, she was real, solid, his. "Ethan," she said seriously, "tonight before the world intrudes again, I want you to know something. No matter what happens, if we never see each other again, if my father forbids it, if your people or mine make it impossible, tonight you became my man. In my heart, in my soul, you are mine and I am yours. That cannot be taken from us." Ethan's throat tightened with emotion. He pulled her down into a kiss that started tender but quickly deepened. Both of them, desperate to memorize every sensation. When they broke apart, he pressed his forehead to hers. "That night, I became your man," he whispered, echoing her words. "And you became my woman. I don't care about anything else. Not the Triple Bar Ranch, not what people say, not the danger. You're what matters. You're everything." Thunder Woman's eyes shone with unshed tears. "Together," she said, the word both promise and prayer. "Together," Ethan agreed. They made love that night, slowly, carefully, with Thunder Woman guiding Ethan through her inexperience and his desire to cherish rather than claim. Ethan was painfully aware of her injured shoulder, of the trust she was placing in him, of the precious gift of her first time. When he entered her, she gasped, her fingers digging into his back. "Go slow," she whispered. "It hurts." "I'll die before I hurt you," Ethan promised, holding perfectly still despite every instinct screaming at him to move. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips, gentle, reverent kisses that said more than words ever could. "Tell me when, love. We go at your pace." Thunder Woman's eyes widened at the endearment, then softened. She lifted her hips experimentally, and a small sound of pleasure escaped her. "Move," she breathed. "Please, Ethan, move with me." They found their rhythm together, halting at first, then smoother, bodies learning each other's language. Ethan watched Thunder Woman's face transform with pleasure, saw her eyes go wide with wonder when the first waves of release hit her. Holding her, feeling her fall apart in his arms, was the most profound experience of his life. When his own climax came, it felt like more than just physical release. It felt like a binding, a soul-deep connection that would last beyond this night. After, they lay tangled together, hearts still racing. Thunder Woman traced lazy patterns on Ethan's chest, her expression dreamy and satisfied. "Is it always like that?" she asked. Ethan laughed softly. "I don't know. I've never—" He stopped, suddenly embarrassed. Thunder Woman pushed up to look at him, surprise clear on her face. "You were also—" "Yeah," Ethan admitted. "There were opportunities, I guess. Saloon girls in town, a widow woman who made it clear she was interested. But it never felt right. They wanted something from me. Money or company or just a warm body. Not—" He cupped her face. "Not this. Not someone who saw me and chose me anyway." "Then we discovered this together," Thunder Woman said, wonder in her voice. "We gave each other something precious, something that can never be taken back or forgotten." "Yeah," Ethan agreed, pulling her close again. "We did." They slept wrapped in each other, and when dawn broke clear and cold, the storm had finally passed. Ethan woke first, watching pale sunlight stream through gaps in the shack's walls. Outside, the world was silent, buried under feet of snow, beautiful and deadly, and completely transformed. Beside him, Thunder Woman still slept, her face peaceful. Ethan memorized the sight, the way morning light caught in her hair, the small smile on her lips, the absolute trust in the way she curved against him. He wanted to wake up like this every day for the rest of his life. Thunder Woman's eyes fluttered open, meeting his. For a moment they just looked at each other, both aware that this perfect bubble of time was about to burst. "We should move," Thunder Woman said quietly, making no move to leave his arms. "Yeah," Ethan agreed, not moving either. They stayed like that for another few minutes, stealing time before finally forcing themselves apart. Ethan checked Thunder Woman's shoulder. Still healing well, no infection, and rewrapped it with the last of his clean cloth. They dressed in awkward silence, both hyper-aware that everything had changed. Ethan went out to check on the horses. Both animals had survived the storm, though they were hungry and restless. The gelding whinnied when he saw Ethan, pushing his nose into Ethan's chest. "I know, boy," Ethan murmured, stroking the horse's neck. "We'll get you fed soon." When he returned to the shack, Thunder Woman was rolling up the buffalo robe, her movements stiff. She wouldn't meet his eyes. "Wenyang," Ethan said softly, crossing to her. He took her hands, waiting until she looked at him. "Talk to me. What are you thinking?" "I am thinking that in daylight, our worlds return," she said. "I am thinking that I must go back to being Running Buffalo's daughter, and you must go back to being a ranch hand. I am thinking," her voice broke, "I am thinking that last night may be all we ever have, and it is not enough. Then we make it enough," Ethan said fiercely. "We find a way, the sacred meeting place. I'll be there, Winyan. I swear it." "My father will be searching for me," Thunder Woman said. "If he finds you anywhere near Lakota lands, he will kill you, not because he is cruel, but because he must protect his people. A white man near our camps is a threat, no matter his intentions." "Then we'll be careful," Ethan insisted. "We'll find a way to meet where it's safe. Ethan." Thunder Woman placed her fingers over his lips, silencing him. "I want to believe it is possible, but I am also not foolish. The world is hard, and it does not care about what we want." She replaced her fingers with her lips, kissing him deeply. When she pulled back, tears shone in her eyes. "But I will try. For you, for us, I will try." They left the shack together, leading the horses through deep snow. The sun was brilliant on the white landscape, almost blinding. Ethan squinted, trying to get his bearings. The Triple Bar Ranch was south and west. Thunder Woman's people wintered to the north. They'd have to split up soon. They walked in silence, neither wanting to be the first to say goodbye. Finally, they reached a small rise where the land opened up. In the distance, Ethan could see smoke from the ranch's chimneys. To the north, more smoke, probably Thunder Woman's father's search parties. "I have to go," Thunder Woman said, her voice steady, despite the tears on her cheeks. "My father's warriors are close. If they find us together..." "I know." Ethan pulled her into his arms one last time, memorizing the feel of her, the smell of her hair, the way she fit perfectly against him. 3 weeks, full moon, sacred meeting place. 3 weeks, Thunder Woman agreed. She pulled back, reaching into her dress and withdrawing the beaded bracelet her brother had made. Before Ethan could protest, she tied it around his wrist. "So you remember. So you come back to me." Ethan didn't have anything to give her in return, except the bandana from around his neck. Faded blue cotton, nothing special. But he tied it gently around her wrist anyway, covering the raw skin where the soldier's bullet had grazed her. "So you remember me," he said. "So you know someone in this world sees you for exactly who you are and loves what he sees." Thunder Woman's sob was half laugh, half cry. She grabbed his face and kissed him hard, desperately, like she could pour her whole soul into it. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "I love you, Ethan Cole." "I love you too," Ethan said. "God help me. I love you too." She pulled away then, mounting her horse in one fluid movement, despite her injured shoulder. She looked down at him, her face a mask of forced composure. "Do not die in the next 3 weeks," she commanded. "Do not take foolish risks. Do not forget." "Never," Ethan promised. "You neither. Stay safe, Win Yang." Thunder Woman nodded once, then urged her horse forward. Ethan watched her ride north, her figure growing smaller against the white landscape. He stood there long after she'd disappeared, one hand on the beaded bracelet, his heart aching in his chest. The ride back to the Triple Bar Ranch was cold and lonely. When Ethan finally rode into the yard, the foreman came running out. "Cole! Jesus Christ, we thought you died in the storm!" The older man looked him over. "Where the hell have you been?" "Line shack," Ethan said, dismounting stiffly. "Storm caught me checking fences. Hold up there until it passed." "Alone?" The foreman's eyes were sharp. "Alone," Ethan lied, meeting his gaze steadily. "Why?" "Just checking. Report came in that some Lakota warriors have been searching the area. Chief Running Buffalo's daughter went missing during the storm. They're looking for her." The foreman spat into the snow. "Probably froze to death somewhere." Good riddance to one less savage. Ethan's fist clenched, but he forced himself to stay calm. "She find her way home?" "Who knows? Who cares? Get your horse settled and grab some food. Boss wants all hands checking for storm damage tomorrow." Ethan nodded and led his gelding to the barn, grateful to be dismissed. Inside the worn stable, he leaned against a stall door and let himself shake. She'd made it back. She was safe. Thank God. The next 3 weeks were the longest of Ethan's life. He worked mechanically, fixing fences and tending cattle, but his mind was always elsewhere. At night, he'd lie in his bunk and touch the beaded bracelet on his wrist, remembering Thunder Woman's face in firelight, the sound of her laughter, the way she'd whispered his name. He made careful preparations for the full moon. He told the foreman he wanted to scout north for better summer grazing, establishing a pattern of riding out alone. He cached supplies at various points: food, blankets, ammunition, in case he needed to leave quickly. He memorized every detail Thunder Woman had told him about the sacred meeting place. Finally, the day came. Ethan worked through his morning chores with forced normalcy, then saddled his gelding right after the noon meal. The foreman barely looked up when Ethan said he was heading north to check potential grazing land. The ride took him through country he'd never seen, rolling hills that gradually became more rugged, stands of pine that whispered in the wind, and eventually a series of twisting canyons that seemed to lead nowhere. Ethan's heart pounded as the sun began its descent. What if he couldn't find it? What if Thunder Woman couldn't get away? What if her father had forbidden her from leaving? Then, just as the sun touched the horizon, he rounded a bend and saw it, a canyon with red gold walls that glowed in the fading light, and at its heart, a spring that caught the last rays of sun like liquid gold. It was beautiful, peaceful, untouched, sacred, just as Thunder Woman had said. And there, sitting beside the spring, with her back to a sun-warmed rock, was Thunder Woman herself. She stood when she saw him, her whole face transforming with joy. Ethan barely remembered dismounting, barely registered dropping his horse's reins. Then he was running, and she was running, and they met in the middle of the canyon, in a collision of arms and lips and breathless laughter. "You came," Thunder Woman gasped between kisses. "I was afraid. I thought. Wild horses couldn't keep me away," Ethan said, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around. "God, I missed you. Every second, every breath I missed you." Thunder Woman clung to him, her face buried in his neck. "I thought I dreamed you, thought the storm and the fever made me imagine you. But you're real. You're here." "I'm here," Ethan confirmed, setting her down, but not letting go. "And I'm not going anywhere." They spent that evening and night at the sacred meeting place, making up for lost time. Thunder Woman told him about the joy and relief when she'd stumbled into her father's search party, about the questions she'd dodged regarding where she'd been and how she'd survived. Ethan told her about the careful plans he'd made, the excuses he'd crafted, the way every day without her had felt like a year. As the moon rose full and bright over the canyon walls, they made love again, slower this time, savoring every touch, every sensation. Afterward, lying wrapped in blankets under the stars, Thunder Woman turned to face Ethan. "I cannot keep doing this," she said quietly. Ethan's heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "I mean sneaking away, lying to my father, pretending you are just a beautiful dream I wake from." Thunder Woman took his hand, pressing it to her heart. "I want more than stolen moments, Ethan. I want a life with you, a real life." "So do I," Ethan said fervently. "But how? Your people will never accept me, and mine will never accept you. We're caught between two worlds that want nothing more than to destroy each other." Thunder Woman was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing patterns on his chest. "There is another way," she said finally. "In the old days, before the white men came, sometimes people from different tribes would marry. They would leave their birth tribes and create new families, new alliances. It was rare, but accepted." "Are you saying we should leave?" Ethan asked carefully. "Both our peoples?" "I am saying," Thunder Woman replied, "that there are places where we could go, north, into the territories where the railroad has not yet reached, places where a man and woman could build a life together without questions." She looked up at him, her eyes earnest. "We could have that ranch you dreamed of, Ethan. Small, but ours. We could build something that belongs to neither white world nor Lakota, but to us." Ethan's mind raced. Leave the triple bar? Leave everything he knew? But what did he really have here? A job that worked him to the bone, a bunk shared with men who barely tolerated him. No future beyond endless days of hard labor. "I'd be leaving your family," he said. "Your brother, your parents. Could you do that?" Thunder Woman's eyes filled with tears, but her voice stayed steady. "It would hurt. Like cutting off my own arm, it would hurt. But I cannot be Running Buffalo's daughter forever, Ethan. I cannot marry some chief my father chooses for political alliance. I cannot pretend you are not written on my heart." She touched his face. "I choose you. I choose us. I choose the life we could build together over the life I'm supposed to want." "Then we go," Ethan said, decision crystallizing in his chest. "We go north. We find land. We build that ranch. Together." Thunder Woman smiled through her tears. Together. They spent the rest of the night, making plans. Where to go, what to bring, how to leave without drawing pursuit. They'd need supplies, money, horses, and most importantly, a significant head start before either of their peoples realized they were gone. It would mean leaving behind everything and everyone they'd ever known, stepping into an uncertain future with only each other to rely on. But as dawn broke over the canyon and Ethan held Thunder Woman in his arms, he'd never been more certain of anything in his life. 2 weeks later, on a moonless night perfect for disappearing, Ethan Cole rode away from the Triple Bar Ranch for the last time. He left no note, took only what he'd earned, and vanished into the darkness, heading north. At a predetermined meeting spot, 10 miles out, Thunder Woman waited with 2 horses and supplies she'd carefully gathered. She'd left a letter for her father. Ethan had helped her write it. His English, combined with her heartfelt Lakota. She'd tried to explain, to make Running Buffalo understand that this wasn't rejection, but choice, that she loved her people, but loved Ethan more, that she hoped someday he might understand. As they rode north together, into the unknown, leaving behind the only worlds they'd ever known, Thunder Woman reached across the space between their horses and took Ethan's hand. "Are you frightened?" she asked. "Terrified," Ethan admitted, "but also more alive than I've ever been. You? The same." Thunder Woman squeezed his hand. "But we face it together, yes?" "Together," Ethan confirmed. "Always together." They rode through the night and into the dawn. 2 souls who'd found each other in a storm and refused to be parted. Behind them, their old lives faded into memory. Ahead, a future full of unknowns stretched like the endless prairie. But they faced it together, and that made all the difference. 2 years later, on a small ranch in the Montana Territories, Ethan Cole stood in the doorway of the cabin he'd built with his own hands and watched his wife work in their garden. Thunder Woman, who now went by both names, never choosing one over the other, was singing softly in Lakota as she tended their vegetables, her pregnant belly round under her simple cotton dress. They'd found their place in the world, after all. It hadn't been easy. There'd been hard winters, suspicious neighbors, and the constant work of building something from nothing. But they'd done it together, supporting each other through every challenge. Ethan thought back to that storm, that line shack, that moment when a desperate, wounded woman had taught him what it meant to truly see another person. He thought about the choice they'd made, to leave behind everything familiar for something uncertain but infinitely precious. Thunder Woman looked up and saw him watching. Her face lit with that smile that still made his heart race, and she beckoned him over. Ethan crossed the yard and pulled her into his arms, careful of her belly, and kissed her soundly. "What are you thinking about?" Thunder Woman asked when they parted. "About a blizzard," Ethan said. "About the luckiest moment of my life, when I found a line shack that wasn't empty." Thunder Woman laughed, the sound as beautiful as it had been that first night. "I was thinking the same thing. How a storm brought us together. How being snowed in saved my life in more ways than one." She took his hand and placed it on her belly where their child moved beneath her skin. "How that night I found my home. Not a place, but a person. That night I became your man," Ethan said, echoing the words she'd spoken so long ago. "And you remain my man," Thunder Woman replied. "Now and always. Together." "Together," Ethan agreed, and kissed her again as the Montana sun climbed higher in their sky, warming the life they'd built with nothing but courage, love, and an unwavering belief that some things were worth fighting for. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're enjoying this tale from. Are you listening at home, during your commute, or perhaps while working? Please, subscribe to the From Wild West channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of Ethan and Thunder Woman's journey? Your feedback means the world to us.